Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment, quiet, haunting, and yet liberating, when you realize they don't love you. Not because they said it, not because they screamed it, but because everything they do whispers it. And this is the moment that breaks you or births you. What do when the person you gave your soul to looks at you like a stranger? You let go, not because you're heartless, but because you're finally tired of bleeding for someone who never noticed you were cut. You see, attachment is a trick of the mind. It convinces you that your happiness lies outside of yourself, clinging to another human as if they are your lifeline. But here's the truth most people never dare to face. The person who doesn't love you is not your home. They are the fire that taught you where never to place your heart again. And yet we linger. Why? Because love, even unreturned, creates a rhythm. We grow used to checking our phones, hoping for a text that never comes. We become addicted to their indifference, confusing pain with passion. But what is love if it does not see you? What is love if it asks you to shrink to be noticed? Detachment feels cold at first. You'll cry, you'll ache. Your mind will scream, maybe if I try harder, they'll love me. But the deeper truth is this. You're not supposed to fight for a place in someone's life. You are supposed to be met, cherished, chosen. And if they can't see your worth, it's not your duty to remind them. It's your duty to remember it yourself. Now listen carefully. You are not abandoning them. You are returning to yourself. You are not giving up on love. You are choosing a version of love that includes your peace, your dignity, and your wholeness. Because what you're clinging to is not love. It is memory, is habit. It is the illusion of what could have been, not what is. If you want to be free, you must unchain yourself. Sit with the silence they left. Feel the weight of your loneliness. Then slowly, gently, learn to love that silence. Because in that stillness, you'll hear the most important voice of all, your own. And when you learn to love yourself more than you fear losing them, that's when the detachment becomes sacred. You're not colder. You're not harder. You're wiser. So let them go. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with a soft whisper. Thank you for teaching me what love is not. Because from this moment forward, you are no longer begging for crumbs. You are no longer staying where love must be earned. You are no longer confusing longing with destiny. You are free. Just because you feel deeply for someone doesn't mean they feel the same. This is one of the most painful realizations a human being can experience. The collision between how much you give and how little is received. Emotional attachment is powerful. It makes you believe there is meaning in the silence, hope in the distance, and potential in the absence of effort. You convince yourself that the depth of your emotion validates the bond. But feelings, as real and intense as they may be, are not always mutual. You can pour yourself into someone and still watch them walk away untouched. This happens because we tend to believe that love is measured by sacrifice. We think, if I love harder, they'll see my value. If I stay longer, they'll eventually care. But this kind of thinking leads us into emotional debt. We spend ourselves, our time, our energy, our peace on someone who never asked for our investment. And when the return doesn't come, we question our worth instead of questioning the foundation we built that love on. But here's a brutal truth. Love is not proved by how much you suffer for someone. The pain of unreciprocated affection is not noble. It is a warning sign. It tells you that you've crossed the boundary between giving and losing yourself. It reminds you that no matter how loyal your heart is, no amount of devotion can change a heart that isn't open to you. You cannot love someone into loving you. Love doesn't work like that. It's not a transaction. It's not something you earn. It is a meeting of two souls, each willing, each present, each intentional. And when someone doesn't love you back, it's not always because they're cruel. Sometimes it's just that they can't. They don't feel the connection. They're emotionally unavailable, or they're simply not in the same place you are. That's not your fault. But what becomes your responsibility is what you do with that truth. Clinging to someone who doesn't love you is like trying to hold water with your bare hands. It slips through, no matter how tightly you grip. The tighter you hold on, the more it hurts. You try to interpret silence as mystery, absence as a test, but you're only delaying the inevitable. You're building a dream around someone who doesn't want to be in it. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. The worst part is not their indifference. It's what you do to yourself in the process. You start lowering your standards. You excuse behaviors that hurt you. You overanalyze every word, hoping to find proof that they care. But emotional attachment isn't the same as connection. It's a one-sided tether. You're locked in a cage that you built out of hope. And every time you justify staying, you reinforce the bars. The truth is, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to recognize when love isn't being returned and choose to walk away not out of pride, but out of self-respect. You must stop mistaking emotional intensity for compatibility. Just because you feel deeply doesn't mean the relationship is right. Sometimes the feelings are real, but the person isn't right for you. And sometimes the person is indifferent, but your fantasy of them keeps you hooked. You have to become your own sanctuary. You have to detach, not because your heart is cold, but because it is tired of bleeding. Emotional detachment is not the absence of love. It's the presence of clarity. It is choosing to stop dancing for someone who refuses to look at you. It is realizing that you don't have to stay where your love is not reciprocated. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to convince someone to care. Your feelings are valid, but they are not a guarantee of mutual love. The strength of your emotion does not bind someone to you. Emotional attachment may feel like love, but real love requires two people, fully engaged, fully present. Anything less than that is an echo. And you were never meant to live your life responding to echoes. Letting go isn't heartless, it's clarity. It is the most honest thing you can do when faced with someone who doesn't love you back. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you suddenly stop feeling or that you become numb. It means you no longer allow those feelings to control your actions, cloud your judgment, or chain you to someone who doesn't care. It means finally choosing peace over confusion, stability over chaos, and self-worth over silent suffering. We often confuse attachment with love. We believe that staying in emotional turmoil is proof of our devotion. But real love doesn't require you to suffer. It doesn't ask you to compromise your identity. If someone's presence in your life constantly brings you doubt, insecurity, or anxiety, then it's not love, it's dependency. And the longer you stay attached, the deeper you sink into a version of yourself that's disconnected from reality. Letting go is not giving up, it's waking up. It's a moment of spiritual sobriety when you finally see things as they are instead of how you wish they would be. It's choosing to stop romanticizing the potential and start respecting the reality. You begin to see that their lack of effort is not mysterious. It's revealing. Their emotional distance is not a puzzle to solve. It's a boundary they've silently placed between you and their heart. It's in this space between fantasy and truth that you must make a choice. You can keep holding on to the illusion, hoping, waiting, wishing, or you can choose to detach. And in that detachment, there's power, there's clarity. You begin to realize that your healing was never going to come from them, it was always going to come from you. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring altogether. It means you stop trying to force what isn't flowing. You stop pouring your energy into a black hole. You stop assigning value to someone who doesn't see your light. Emotional detachment is a reclaiming of your power. You stop chasing texts, seeking validation, and interpreting mixed signals. You stop hoping for something more because you finally understand that someone who truly values you wouldn't leave you guessing in the first place. There is a stillness that follows detachment. At first, it feels like loneliness. Your mind will try to drag you back with memories, with what-ifs, with a million imagined scenarios where things could have gone differently. But over time, that stillness becomes your strength. You begin to hear your own voice again, unfiltered by their silence. You begin to breathe without their approval. You begin to live, not as a half waiting to be completed, but as a whole, finally waking up. It's important to remember that you are not cruel for detaching. You are not selfish for choosing your own peace. You are simply acknowledging that love is not a battlefield where you must keep proving your worth to someone who refuses to see it. You are not abandoning love. You are abandoning self-abandonment. You are saying no to confusion, inconsistency, and emotional starvation. You are saying yes to clarity, self-respect, and truth. There's a quiet dignity in walking away from what doesn't serve you, especially when your heart still wants to stay. But true strength is not holding on. It's knowing when to release. Letting go doesn't mean you never loved them. It means you loved yourself enough to stop hurting. You cared deeply, but you won't beg. You believed in them, but you won't keep waiting for something that never arrives. You are open, honest, and real. But now you choose to be whole. In detachment, you find yourself again. You rediscover your worth, not through someone else's validation, but through your own eyes. You begin to see that love is not supposed to be begged for. It is supposed to be freely given. And if it's not, it was never yours to begin with. A clarity is peace. And peace, finally, is freedom. You are not defined by their absence. This is a truth you must hold tightly, especially when your heart feels empty and your thoughts echo with memories of them. When someone you love doesn't love you back, or worse, walks away as if you meant nothing, It's easy to internalize their absence as a reflection of your value. You begin to wonder if you were too much or not enough. You question your worth, replaying every interaction, trying to find the flaw that made them stop choosing you. But the reality is, their inability to love you does not make you any less deserving of love. Their departure is not a verdict on your value. There is a tendency, deeply rooted in human nature, to define ourselves through the lens of others. We feel seen when we are loved and invisible when we are not. But this is a dangerous illusion. Your worth does not shrink or swell based on who stays or who leaves. It is constant, it is untouched. You are whole with or without them. When someone who once held your heart leaves your life, it can feel like a piece of you goes with them. You might feel hollow, like their absence created a void you'll never fill. But the truth is, that void is not them. It's the illusion you built around them. It's the expectations, the dreams, the belief that your happiness was somehow tied to their presence. You must understand, no one has the power to complete you or destroy you unless you give them that power. There's a quiet kind of healing that begins the moment you stop trying to interpret their silence as a statement about you, their decision to withhold love, to walk away, to not show up. Those are reflections of where they are on their own journey. They might be emotionally unavailable, they might be lost, or they simply might not be capable of loving you the way you deserve. But none of that defines you. You do not have to carry the weight of their choices. Too often we stay stuck in stories where we are the one not chosen, the one left behind. We wear that identity like a wound, nurturing it with thoughts of inadequacy. But you are not the abandoned one. You are the one who loved, with honesty, who showed up fully, who gave your heart even when it was hard. That is not weakness. That is power. That is integrity. You must stop framing yourself as the rejected and start seeing yourself as the brave. You are not what they didn't see. You are what remains when their gaze turns away. And what remains is something beautiful. Your depth, your softness, your strength, the way you keep showing up for life, even when your heart is broken, the way you choose healing over bitterness, the way you hold space for others even when you feel empty inside. These are the things that define you, not their absence, not their silence, not their inability to stay. The truth is, some people were never meant to walk with you to the end. They were chapters, not the whole story. And just because a chapter ends doesn't mean the book is over. Their exit is not your ending. In fact, and it may be your beginning, a beginning where you stop measuring yourself through someone else's presence and start reconnecting with who you are in your own sacred. This is the space where you learn to validate yourself, to say, I am enough, not because someone told you, but because you've come to know it deeply. This is where you reclaim your identity, not as someone who was left, but as someone who is finally free to love themselves without distraction. You are not their absence. You are your own presence. And that presence, when fully embraced, is more than enough. You will grieve, yes. You will remember. You will miss them on quiet nights and empty mornings, but with every sunrise, you'll remember a little more of who you are without them. And eventually you'll see that you never really lost them. You simply lost the illusion that they were the key to your worth. And in that truth you will rise, whole, unshaken, free. Pain is a teacher, not a home. Yet so many people choose to live in it. They wrap themselves in it like a familiar blanket, believing that by holding on to the suffering, they are somehow holding on to the person who caused it. But pain was never meant to be a permanent address. It arrives to awaken, not imprison. When someone doesn't love you, when their words become cold and their actions indifferent, the ache you feel is real, but it's not meant to stay. It's a signal, a message from your soul telling you that something must change. Too often we confuse pain with loyalty. We believe that the longer we hurt, the more it proves how deeply we loved. We wear our wounds like medals of honor, as if suffering is noble. But there's nothing noble about staying in emotional bondage. There's nothing empowering about letting your heart decay in a place where it was never nurtured. Pain has a purpose, yes, but its purpose is growth, not stagnation. Think about the way a flame burns your hand. The pain is immediate, sharp, undeniable. It forces you to pull away. It's not there to torture you. It's there to protect you. Emotional pain works the same way. When you feel ignored, devalued, unloved, that pain is not a punishment. It's a signal. It's your spirit calling out, saying, this is not where you belong. And yet, instead of pulling away, many of us lean in further, hoping that fire will become warmth if we just endure it long enough. But it never does. You must understand this. The person who hurt you is not responsible for your healing. You are. Pain may enter your life without permission, but whether it stays is entirely up to you. Some people build entire identities around their heartbreak. They talk about it endlessly, relive it in their minds, and allow it to shape how they see the world. But pain that is not transformed is transferred. It will seep into your thoughts, your relationships, your self-pursuit, until everything around you begins to echo your inner wound. Letting go of pain is not the same as pretending it didn't happen. It's not denying what you felt. It's not rushing to forget. Letting go means honoring the pain, learning from it, and then refusing to let it define the rest of your story. Yes, you were hurt. Yes, they didn't love you. But that moment does not own you. It doesn't get to dictate your worth, your future, or your capacity to be loved again. Pain is a mirror. It shows you where you've been too generous with your trust, too silent with your needs, too accepting of the bare minimum. It reveals what you believe about yourself and what you believe you deserve. But once you've seen the lesson, you have a choice. Stay and relive the story, or rise and rewrite it. You are not meant to camp in the ruins. You are meant to rebuild. Every time you revisit that pain, ask yourself, what am I looking for? Closure? Validation? An apology? Chances are, what you truly seek is peace. What you comes when you decide that their rejection will no longer be the center of your life. It comes when you shift your focus from what they did to what you can do now. Pain is a passage. It invites you to walk through the fire and come out the other side reborn. But if you sit down in the flames, if you make a home there, you'll only burn away the parts of you that were meant to bloom. Healing requires movement. It requires courage. It requires the decision to stop identifying with the heartbreak and start identifying with the one who survived it. Feel the pain. Let it teach you. Let it open your eyes. Let it strip away the illusions. But do not let it make a home in your heart. You were not created to dwell in sorrow. You were created to rise from it wiser, stronger, softer in the right places, and harder in the places where boundaries were once too weak. Pain is a teacher. Let it teach you. Then thank it. Then leave. True healing begins the moment you stop waiting for closure. We spend so much of our emotional energy hoping the person who hurt us will explain why they did it, why they changed, why they stopped loving us. We crave answers, thinking they will somehow soothe the ache. But the harsh truth is, closure is often a luxury we never receive. Some people will walk away from you with silence as their final word. They will leave questions unanswered and wounds open, not because you don't deserve peace, but because they lack the emotional depth or courage to give it. What do you do when the apology never comes? When the explanation never arrives? You give yourself what they couldn't. You choose your own peace over their confusion. You stop tying your healing to someone else's honesty. Because closure isn't something they give you, it's something you create when you decide to stop reopening the wound for the sake of understanding it. The mind will resist this at first. It will cling to what-ifs, to fantasies of confrontation or reconciliation. You replay past conversations, analyze tone, search for hidden meanings in their silence. But none of that brings peace. It only deepens the attachment. It feeds the illusion that you still need something from them to move on. You don't. You never did. What you needed was clarity, and now you have it. Their absence is all the clarity you'll ever need. There is power in accepting the unanswered. It teaches you how to trust yourself again. It invites you to stop looking outward for validation and turn inward for truth. You begin to see that the closure you long for is not a single moment or final conversation. It's a series of quiet decisions. It's choosing to stop hoping they'll reach out, choosing to stop checking their updates, their status, their energy, choosing to stop justifying their behavior and start protecting your peace. When you stop waiting for closure, you stop giving them authority over your emotional state. You reclaim your power. You take the steering wheel of your own healing and turn the direction inward, where it always belonged. You begin to nurture yourself with things that fill you rather than drain you. You begin to rewrite the story, not as someone abandoned, but as someone awakened. Not as someone unchosen, but as someone finally choosing themselves. Closure is not a door they close for you. It's a door you decide to walk through and seal behind you. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It doesn't always come with a sense of finality. Sometimes it's just a quiet morning when you realize you haven't thought about them in days, or the first time you hear their name and don't flinch, or the moment you see something that once reminded you of them and feel nothing. That is closure. It's subtle, it builds slowly, but it's yours, and it's real. It's important to understand that not every story ends with justice. Not every pain is resolved by fairness. Some people hurt you and move on as if it meant nothing. That doesn't make your pain invalid. It just means your healing has to be even stronger. You can't wait for them to wake up and see your worth. You have to see it first. You have to be the one who decides, This chapter is over, and I will not keep rereading it. When you release the need for closure, you create space for something better, for deeper self-respect, for new connections, for peace. You stop circling around a closed door and finally notice the open ones around you. And in that space, you begin to bloom again. Not because they came back, not because they apologized, but because you moved forward without needing them to. Let go of the fantasy that they will one day come back and make it all make sense. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But your healing can't wait. Your life can't pause for someone else's growth. If you keep your heart chained to what never was, you'll miss everything that could be. Choose to set yourself free. Choose to close the door with your own hands. Choose peace, even if it comes without explanation. Closure is not found in their words. It's found in your decision to rise anyway. The most profound act of self-respect is emotional detachment. Not in the sense of becoming cold or indifferent, but in the quiet, deliberate way you begin to take your power back from situations and people who drain you. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop needing. It means you love without losing yourself. You give without expecting your worth to be returned as validation. You care deeply, but no longer allow someone else's lack of reciprocity to unbalance your peace. At first, detachment feels unnatural. You've likely been conditioned to believe that love means holding on, fighting harder, proving yourself. So when you start pulling your emotions away from someone who doesn't love you, it feels like betrayal of them, of the relationship, even of yourself. But it's not betrayal. It's the beginning of truth. Emotional detachment is not an act of abandonment. It is the removal of illusion. It is the moment you stop negotiating with reality and start accepting it. The power of emotional detachment lies in your ability to observe without being consumed. You see the pattern, but you no longer chase it. You hear the silence, but you no longer fear it. You recognize the distance in their words, and instead of shrinking to close the gap, you expand within yourself. You no longer try to force connection where there is none. You stop tying your peace to their moods, their attention, their affection. You realize that your inner world is sacred, and no one should have the power to shake it unless you allow them to. It's a radical shift from reaction to response, from seeking to grounding, where once you craved their presence to feel whole, now you sit with your own presence and feel complete. This is not about pretending. It's not about becoming numb. It's about being awake. Awake enough to see when something is no longer nourishing your soul. Awake enough to feel the difference between effort and indifference. Awake enough to walk away, not in anger, but in clarity. Detachment doesn't require you to hate them. In fact, it often comes with a strange kind of compassion. You begin to see them clearly, flawed, limited, perhaps even lost. But you no longer feel the need to fix, chase, or wait. You accept them for who they are, and more importantly, you accept yourself for who you are becoming. You no longer sacrifice your peace to keep someone in your life who doesn't know how to value it. This is where emotional detachment becomes power. Because once you've detached from needing someone's love to feel lovable, you become unstoppable. You stop settling for half-hearted affection. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. You stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You become aligned with your own energy, your own rhythm, your own truth, and it's not about never feeling again. It's about feeling without falling, loving without losing, giving without grasping. You live with your heart open, but your boundaries strong. You recognize that the highest form of love is not attachment, it is freedom. Freedom for them to be who they are, and freedom for you to walk away when what they offer is no longer aligned with your soul. The moment you master emotional detachment is the moment you reclaim your emotional sovereignty. You are no longer ruled by the storm outside, because you've cultivated calm within. Their coldness doesn't freeze you. Their absence doesn't hollow you. Their peace no longer depends on someone else's presence. And in that detachment, something beautiful happens. You begin to attract better. Not because you're chasing it, but because you've stopped chasing anything that costs you your self-respect. You create space for genuine connection. You open your life to relationships that don't drain, don't confuse, don't require you to prove your worth daily. You become magnetic, not because you're desperate, but because you're whole. Emotional detachment is not a destination, it's a practice. A daily decision to put your peace first. A reminder that your heart is a sacred space, and not everyone deserves a place in it. Detach, not to escape, but to elevate. Detach, not to disconnect, but to reconnect with yourself. Detach, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about you. When someone doesn't love you, it's not your cue to chase, prove, or lose yourself. It's your invitation to return to yourself, fully, powerfully, and without apology. Emotional detachment is not a cold withdrawal. It's a courageous act of choosing peace over pain, clarity over chaos, and self-worth over silent suffering. You are not defined by who stays or who leaves. You are defined by how deeply you choose to rise, even when your heart feels broken. Letting go is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. It is the moment you stop begging for love and begin embodying it. True healing happens when you stop needing closure, when you accept that not every story ends with justice, but you can still walk away with dignity. When you detach, you do not stop loving. You simply stop abandoning yourself for love that doesn't nourish you. And in that space, you rediscover the one person you needed all along. There will come a moment, quiet, ordinary, when no one is watching, no applause, no eyes to impress. And in that stillness, you will be faced with the question, do I move or do I stay the same? And that is when you must force yourself, not because you feel like it, not because it's convenient, but because your life depends on it. The truth is, most people will never become who they were born to be, not because they lack talent, but because they never forced themselves to keep going when everything inside them screamed to stop. Watch this until the end, not for me, but for that future version of you waiting to be born. Because if you don't learn how to push yourself through the silence, the boredom, the fear, you will remain exactly where you are forever. Discipline is not punishment, it is self-alignment. This is a truth most people miss entirely, because when they hear the word discipline, they imagine restriction, control, and even self-betrayal. They think of sacrifice as suffering and rules as a cage. But they forget something essential. The cage was built by your own mind, and the key is already in your hand. To force yourself is not to hurt yourself, it is to call yourself back into alignment with what? With the version of you that exists beyond excuses. With the version that sees clearly what must be done, even when the body resists and the mind protests. Discipline is not you turning against yourself. It is you standing beside yourself and saying, I know this feels uncomfortable, but we must go anyway. The world will try to sell you comfort. It will package stagnation as peace, avoidance as self-care, and delay as self-love. But discipline sees through all that. Discipline says, you are not just what you feel, you are what you decide. And decisions, the ones that change your life, are rarely made in ease. They are made in discomfort, in those quiet in-between moments where everything in you wants to quit, and something greater whispers, not yet. When you force yourself to act, you are not being harsh, you are being clear. You are not suppressing your nature, you are revealing it. Because underneath the tiredness, underneath the fear, underneath the doubt, is a will that was never meant to be soft. That will is the fire in your chest, the thing that pulls you toward growth, even when growth feels like death to the old version of you. There is a version of you that wakes up without snoozing the alarm, that works through resistance, that doesn't need to feel inspired to do what needs to be done. That version is not a fantasy, it's a decision. And that decision begins with forcing yourself, not forever, but just long enough for discipline to become rhythm. And that rhythm, once it finds you, will do what motivation never could. People chase motivation. They wait for the perfect time. They chase energy, clarity, enthusiasm. But these things are results, not causes. They arise from movement, from momentum. And momentum begins the moment you push past what feels good and you do what aligns with what you truly want. Ask yourself this: what is the cost of not forcing yourself? How many dreams have you let sit dormant, not because they were impossible, but because you refused to be uncomfortable long enough to see them grow? How many times have you known what needed to be done and watched yourself retreat, saying, I'll do it tomorrow, while silently knowing that tomorrow never comes? The truth is painful, but it's also liberating. Because once you understand that self-discipline is not about being hard on yourself, but rather true to yourself, you no longer wait for the mood to match the mission. You stop being reactive. You stop asking for permission from your feelings. And you start leading, not just yourself, but your life. This is the power of forcing yourself. It is not an act of self-hate. It is an act of deep, radical self-respect. It says, I am worth the effort. I am worth the discomfort. I am worth breaking the pattern even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Every time you act in alignment with your long-term vision, even when it hurts, even when you don't want to, you tell the universe and yourself that you are ready, that you are serious, that you can be trusted with more. So no, discipline is not punishment, it's liberation in disguise. Because when you master the ability to move through resistance, not by waiting for it to disappear, but by facing it head on, you become someone the world cannot ignore. You become someone you cannot ignore. And that is how you change your life. Comfort is a seductive prison. It's warm. It's familiar. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't challenge you. It welcomes you as you are and quietly whispers, "Stay here. Everything's fine." But that voice, though soothing, is a lie dressed in silk, because nothing truly meaningful ever grows in comfort. Comfort is where dreams go to fade, where potential withers, where greatness is reduced to wishful thinking. You see, comfort doesn't need to change you. It doesn't need to hold you down by force. All it has to do is keep you still, and it's good at that. It disguises itself as peace, but it's not peace. It's the absence of movement. It's stagnation with a soft blanket thrown over it. You think you're safe, but really, and the danger is, it doesn't feel dangerous at all. It feels easy. That's the trap. We mistake ease for rightness. We confuse the absence of friction with alignment. But comfort is not your friend if your dreams live outside of it, and they always do. What you want most is sitting in the cold. It's sitting in the early mornings when no one claps for you. It's buried under repetition and failure and boredom. It's hidden in the work you keep avoiding because it feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Everything great you will ever create, every part of yourself you'll be proud of, will come through discomfort, through the friction, through the resistance. This is why you must force yourself, because the path of least resistance leads you exactly where everyone else is going, nowhere. Think about how often you've chosen comfort over growth. How many times you knew what you needed to do, but talked yourself out of it because it felt like too much. You told yourself it wasn't the right time, that you'd do it when you felt more ready, but that feeling never came, did it? Comfort delays you. It tells you to wait for a better mood, a clearer mind, a more convenient season. And while you wait, life keeps moving. Opportunities don't freeze for your convenience. Growth doesn't wait for you to feel ready. If you want to become something more than what you are today, you have to move through the discomfort, not around it. There is nothing inherently wrong with rest or ease or recovery. But when those things become your default, when they become the norm, not the exception, you are not resting, you are retreating. You are abandoning the part of you that wants more. And slowly, quietly, comfort begins to rewrite your standards. You start lowering the bar for yourself. You rationalize mediocrity. You convince yourself that maybe your dreams were too big, that maybe you're not the kind of person who makes things happen. But none of that is true. The only thing that's true is this. You chose comfort too often, and now it has made a home inside you. To escape this seductive prison, you must force your way out. That doesn't mean pain for the sake of pain. It means doing the thing that scares you. It means being willing to look awkward, to start small, to try and fail and try again. It means choosing movement when stillness feels easier. Now here's the paradox. Once you get used to discomfort, once you begin to see it as a sign that you're on the right path, it stops feeling like suffering. It starts feeling like clarity. Comfort wants you to stay small. Growth wants you to rise. and no one else can make that choice for you. You have to wake up each day and ask yourself, do I want to feel good right now, or do I want to become the person I'm capable of being? Because you can't have both. Not in the beginning, not when it matters most. The next time you feel that pull to stay where it's safe, recognize it for what it is, a test, a moment to choose force over ease, to walk out of the prison, even if your legs tremble, because the door has always been open. You won't feel ready, and that's precisely why you must begin. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths you'll ever face on the path to becoming who you're meant to be. The myth of readiness is one of the most powerful illusions holding people back. We hesitate. We tell ourselves we'll start once we feel confident, once the fear fades, once we've learnt more, planned better, or once the timing is perfect. But the perfect moment never comes. The fear doesn't disappear. And the feeling of readiness? It's an illusion, a moving target that gets further away the longer you wait. The mind loves certainty. It seeks safety. Anything new, anything unknown, automatically triggers resistance. You tell yourself you're not ready, not because you truly aren't, but because your mind is trying to protect you from risk, from the possibility of failure, from discomfort. But that very resistance is the signal that you are exactly where you need to be. The people who move forward in life, who build something meaningful, who achieve what others only talk about, they don't feel more ready than you do. They just begin anyway. They act in spite of the doubt. They start while scared. They understand that readiness is something you earn through action, not something you receive before it. Think of anything you've done that you're now proud of. Did you feel totally ready when you started? Probably not. You might have stumbled, second-guessed yourself, made mistakes. But still, you moved. And in that movement, you became stronger, more capable, more clear. Action revealed what thinking could never uncover. Action made you ready. This is the paradox of growth. You become prepared by doing the thing you feel unprepared to do. Waiting for the right feeling is like waiting for the sky to hand you permission. It won't. The only permission that matters is the one you give yourself the moment you choose to act. And here's the uncomfortable truth. That hesitation, that pause between knowing and doing, is the space where most dreams die. Not because people lack ability, but because they assume readiness is a prerequisite. But if you're waiting to feel ready before you start, you'll wait forever. Life doesn't wait, and neither should you. You see, fear and doubt are not signs to stop. They are signs that you're standing at the edge of something significant. They appear not to block you, but to ask you, are you willing to grow? If you say yes, if you step forward anyway, you begin to rewire your own belief system. You prove to yourself that courage is not about being fearless. It's about acting while afraid. This is why forcing yourself to begin is powerful. It's not just a push. It's a declaration. It says, I'm not here to live in my thoughts. I'm here to live in my actions. You don't overcome fear by thinking more. You overcome it by stepping into the storm and realizing you won't break. And the beauty of it is this. Once you begin, even a little, the fog starts to lift. Each small action builds confidence. Each moment of discomfort builds resilience. You begin to see that readiness wasn't the starting line, It was the result of showing up when it mattered most. You don't need all the answers right now. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know the full path. All you need is the courage to take the next step, the one right in front of you. That single step will lead to the next, and then the next, and eventually you'll look back and realize you became ready long after you started. The goal is not to eliminate fear or doubt, but to outgrow the belief that they get to decide your future. They don't. You do. And your power begins the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start becoming the person who acts regardless. Begin now. Begin without certainty. Begin without the approval of others. Begin even though your hands shake and your voice trembles. Begin because your future depends on it. You're beginning because you're ready. And when you do, you'll discover what those who have gone before you already know. Readiness was never the requirement. It was always the reward. You are both the sculptor and the stone. That's the strange, beautiful contradiction of growth. You are not just the one doing the work. You are also the work itself, the hands that shape and the shape being formed. This is why forcing yourself to achieve goals is not an act of violence or self-rejection. It's an act of creation. It's the process of taking raw potential and deliberately transforming it into something higher, something truer, something more aligned with the life you're meant to live. We often forget that we are works in progress. We speak of change as if it's something that happens to us, as if one day we'll wake up different, without having carved through the resistance, without having chipped away at the parts of us that no longer serve who we want to become. But the truth is, transformation is not a gift. It is earned. It is the result of conscious effort, of doing what is hard, of staying consistent, of forcing yourself to act even when it would be easier not to. Picture a sculptor in front of a block of stone. They see something in it others cannot. A shape, a form, a possibility. It doesn't look like much in the beginning, just a heavy, rough surface. But with each strike of the chisel, a piece falls away. Not because the stone was bad, but because it was in the way of something more beautiful. And in the same way, when you force yourself to wake up early, to stick to the habit, to keep going despite doubt, revealing something within, this is the role you must accept if you want to achieve anything lasting. You must be willing to be uncomfortable, not just once, but over and over. You must take full ownership of both roles. The creator, the one who dreams and the one who builds, the one who envisions the life you want and the one who does the daily, often boring, difficult work to make it real. And what makes this especially powerful is that no one else can do this for you. You are the only one who truly knows what's buried inside you. Others can inspire you, support you, even guide you, but the carving, the daily shaping, must come from your own hands. That's what self-discipline really is. Not punishment, not force without reason, but the sacred process of creating yourself. The process will not be glamorous. It will not always be seen. You may go days, weeks, even years without the applause or recognition. But just because no one is clapping doesn't mean you're not progressing. The most profound work often happens in silence, in solitude, in the moments when you could have chosen comfort, but didn't. And in those moments, when you force yourself to keep going, you are not being unkind to yourself. You are honoring the version of you that still lives beneath the surface, the version of you that hasn't yet been shaped, by the blows of discipline, focus, and resilience, but is waiting to emerge. This process is not clean. You will make mistakes. You will occasionally chip too hard or too softly. There will be days when it feels like nothing is changing, but every strike matters. Every repetition is part of the sculpture. Every small act of self-discipline is a crack in the shell of who you no longer need to be. You begin to see it, not just in what you do, but in who you are becoming. Your posture changes. Your mind sharpens. Your energy shifts. You carry yourself differently, not because you've arrived, but because you're no longer waiting for change to come from the outside. You've become the sculptor. You've accepted that your life is your masterpiece, and you've begun the sacred work of shaping it. When you force yourself tomorrow to do the hard thing, remember this: it's not cruelty, it's craft, it's care. It's a deep respect for the life you're building. You are both the hand that shapes and the stone being shaped. And the more you act in that awareness, the more powerful you become. Not because you're forcing change, but because you're uncovering the person who's been there all along. Discipline is not the opposite of freedom. It is the foundation of it. At first, that may sound like a contradiction. We tend to associate discipline with restriction, rules, rigidity. And freedom, we imagine, is the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But look closely, and you'll see that a life without discipline isn't freedom at all. It's chaos disguised as liberty. It's being ruled by impulse, by emotion, by every fleeting distraction that promises short-term pleasure but steals long-term peace. The truth is, discipline is what allows you to take back control from the noise. It is the quiet force that anchors you when your feelings try to sway you. Because feelings, while valuable, are not always reliable. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel like doing the right thing. But discipline allows you to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. And that is the difference between living reactively and living consciously. Imagine a river without banks. The water spills everywhere, directionless. But when you give it form, when you guide its energy, it becomes powerful enough to turn turbines, to carve valleys, to give life. Your potential is the same. Without discipline, it flows in every direction, unable to create momentum. With discipline, it becomes focused, strong, and unstoppable. This is why forcing yourself is not about being harsh, it's about being committed. It's not about punishing yourself, it's about honoring a deeper promise you've made to your future. Anyone can move when it's easy, but the person who moves when it's hard, who shows up when no one is watching, who keeps going when excuses would be easier, that person begins to build something rare. That person begins to taste true freedom. Because real freedom is not found in the moment you give in to comfort. It's found in the morning you wake up early, not because you had to, but because you chose to. It's found in the hour you spent creating instead of consuming. It's in the 10 minutes of silence you gave yourself instead of scrolling endlessly, searching for something you already carry inside. Freedom is not the ability to avoid responsibility. It's the power to rise above your lower nature. Discipline reveals this power, and the more you exercise it, the more free you become. Free from regret, free from self-doubt, free from the endless cycle of starting and stopping, wishing and waiting, free from the heaviness of unrealized potential. The cost of discipline is momentary discomfort. The cost of undisciplined living is a lifetime of what-ifs. And there is another truth. one we avoid because it confronts our excuses, someone less talented than you, someone with fewer resources and more obstacles, is living the life you say you want simply because they were more disciplined. They showed up. They didn't wait for clarity or perfect conditions. They just decided they were tired of their own delays. You don't lack time. You don't even lack ability. What you lack, at least in the moments when you stall, is the willingness to face discomfort. But discomfort is not your enemy. It is the door. And discipline is the key that unlocks it. When you force yourself to keep going, when you repeat the practice, when you say no to temptation, not because it's bad, but because it doesn't align with your goal, you are no longer being ruled by the world. You're ruling yourself. And from that inner command, everything changes. You speak differently. You think more clearly. You walk into a room with quiet confidence because you know you are doing the work whether anyone sees it or not. You've stopped trying to escape discomfort, and instead you've turned it into your training ground. In the end, the most powerful people are not those who have mastered everything. They are the ones who have mastered themselves. That mastery doesn't come overnight. It comes from small, consistent acts of discipline, from forcing yourself, not out of fear, but out of love. Love for who you are becoming, love for the life you no longer wish to postpone. Each time you do the hard thing, each time you resist the easy path, you are not taking away your freedom, you are reclaiming it. Success doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to effort. And not just random bursts of effort when inspiration strikes, but sustained, focused, relentless movement. The kind of effort that doesn't ask for permission, that doesn't wait for validation. The kind of effort that arises when you stop negotiating with yourself and simply decide, this is what I'm doing, no matter how I feel today. We often fantasize about success as something magical or serendipitous. We imagine that the right moment will find us, that things will align perfectly, that someday it'll just feel easy. But the truth is far less romantic and far more empowering. Success is built brick by brick through repeated actions that most people are too tired, too distracted, or too comfortable to commit to. It is not waiting for you at the end of a lucky break. It is waiting in the next hour of focused work, in the next decision to not give in the next uncomfortable action that no one sees but changes everything. This is why you must force yourself, because you won't always feel like showing up. You won't always feel certain. You won't always be inspired. And that's okay, because your results are not determined by how you feel. They're determined by what you do in spite of how you feel. That's the quiet advantage of the disciplined mind. It doesn't rely on emotion to move forward. It relies on decision. You become successful the moment you stop needing to feel like it. That shift from waiting to choosing is what separates those who dream from those who build. Every time you take action when you don't feel ready, every time you do the work when your mind is whispering excuses, you are proving to yourself that you are no longer a slave to your moods. You are becoming the kind of person success listens to. And what's most powerful is this: it's not about massive overnight change. It's about consistent small victories. The alarm you don't snooze, the workout you don't skip, the project you chip away at even when no one claps, These moments don't look heroic on the outside, but they are. They are acts of self-respect, of inner leadership, of choosing your future over your feeling. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not crossed by motivation, it's crossed by movement. Real success belongs to those who take the step regardless of what the inner voice says. Not because they never hear doubt, but because they've learned not to obey it. That's why forcing yourself is not a negative phrase. It's the ultimate declaration of power. It's the voice inside you that says, I don't need conditions to be perfect. I don't need the mood to strike. I don't even need to want to do it. I just need to begin. And once you begin, something beautiful happens. You gain momentum. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize that you're capable of far more than you've been taught to believe. Because here's the truth. Most people are not failing because they're not talented. They're failing because they're inconsistent. Because they let one bad day turn into 3. One missed workout turn into a skipped week. One negative thought turn into a pattern of self-sabotage. You break this cycle by interrupting it, by taking action precisely when you don't feel like it. That's how success begins. Not in comfort, but in defiance of inertia. The secret is not found in some distant future. It's not buried in another book or another plan. The secret is this. If you show up when others quit, if you take the step when everything in you wants to stall, you will separate yourself. Not in a loud way, not with grand declarations, but in silence, in private victories, in invisible discipline that builds visible results over time. So don't wait to feel like it. Don't wait to be in the mood. Don't wait for someone to tell you it's time. The time is when you decide, and when you make that decision over and over, when you force yourself to keep showing up, you stop chasing success. You start becoming it. You stand at the edge, not of a new idea, but of a choice. You've heard it all before. Push through, stay disciplined, commit. But this time the message isn't just a reminder, it's a mirror, a reflection of what you already know deep within. No one is coming to save you. No breakthrough arrives without effort. No transformation begins until you stop waiting and start acting. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But growth was never supposed to feel safe. You are not here to repeat old patterns. You are here to become something greater than your excuses. You are here to build a life that doesn't just happen, but is chosen, shaped, and earned. Force yourself. Not because you hate who you are, but because you believe in who you can become. There will never be a perfect moment. There will only ever be this one. And if you choose to act now, despite the fear, the doubt, the fatigue, you'll realize something extraordinary. Discipline becomes freedom. Resistance becomes strength. And effort becomes transformation. This isn't just a speech. It's a call. The kind you don't ignore. The kind that doesn't fade when the video ends. So go. Be relentless. Be focused. Be the person who decides today to stop negotiating with mediocrity. Because the life you want, it's waiting on the other side of what you're willing to force yourself to do.